In the world of heavyweight boxing, few men built a reputation as fearsome as Smokin' Joe Frazier. Here was an old-fashioned fighter, prepared to take a punch in order to land a single knockout blow.
I can clown, I can be cute, but that just ain't me, you know? And I don't really think this is the time to be cute and clown. This is a sport that I love, and the name of it is fighting. And I know every now and then I want to be catching a few punches, but I'm not going to worry about it. And as long as it don't take effect on me, I'm sharp and I'm conditioned, I don't worry about it.
But this was no ordinary fighter.
Perfect style. Joe Frazier was much more than just a tough guy. He was slick, smart, slide shots.
I think Joe was really fighting for America, and he brought a lot of honor and dignity to the role that he was in, and he brought dignity to his people, and he brought a nation together.
Alongside Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, Joe Frazier formed part of the greatest era in the history of heavyweight boxing.
Joe Frazier was a hell of a fighter. Joe Frazier belonged in any era.
Joe's gonna come out smoking, and I ain't gonna be joking. I'll be pecking and a poking, pouring water on his smoking. Then this might shock and amaze you, but I will destroy Joe Frazier.
The story of Joe Frazier is a story of two men. Frazier was the man who took Muhammad Ali's title, Ali the man who publicly humiliated Frazier. But neither could have reached the heights they did without the other.
Bottom line, their fights, they're always going to be hyphenated. You can't say one without the other, especially Frazier. It's Ali Frazier hyphen in there.
If Joe Frazier whoops me, I'm getting on my hands and my knees, crawl across the ring, look up to you, say, you're the champion.
Well, I tell you what, I don't, you might gonna be able to crawl. If he whipped me, I'll crawl across the ring to him. But in this situation, he won't be able to crawl. I gotta walk over him.
You had Muhammad Ali, who was the symbol of the anti-war movement, the exemplar of black pride. And then on the other hand, you had Joe Frazier, who fairly or unfairly had become the fighter of the establishment, the status quo.
But the rivalry ran deeper than that.
I guess if you've been around this guy long enough, you know what I mean, somehow you could have a lot of hate in your heart, you know, when that bell rings. But otherwise, you look at him and laugh, there's something wrong with the guy. You got to be safe.
Frazier internalized, boiled over. I don't know that it's unfair. He was hurt. But, you know, how do people show their hurt? Some in anger come out, some ignore, and some just burn inside.
For almost 50 years, Joe Frazier burned inside.
The irony of Muhammad Ali becoming this militant in the 60s is he had a beautiful lifestyle. He was a young amateur boxer who was subsidized from the time he was a young boy, 10 or 12 years of age. Joe Frazier worked on a sharecropper's farm. His father had one arm. Frazier was doing work of an adult when he was 10, 11, 12 years of age. Frazier was always doing it tough. So I think Frazier felt that, you know, for Ali to belittle him when he really went through that life, that was pretty much, you would say, that's the stereotypical life of an American black man. I think that grinded at Frazier.
Born into poverty in 1944 in Beaufort County, South Carolina, the young Joe had little formal education and even fewer prospects. Boxing offered a way out.
I was born and raised in South Carolina. I was going to school, but I didn't go to school. I think I learned how to spell cat and dogs, you know, that was all. And the guy who was sitting next to me, I had a copy of his paper. Most likely he was wrong, so therefore I was the same way. Wrong again. So therefore, you know, I never would grow to be, let's say, a lawyer, you know, but growing to be, let's say, champion of the world.
Frazier found his initial calling in the unforgiving cotton fields of America's Deep South.
The work around here was hard, that's for sure, and, well, driving tractors in the field, loading vans, otherwise working on the grader machine, and every now and then dig a little ditch also. Well, it didn't pay well, but right now I think it paid off.
One day I sit down and tell Mom, look, I gotta move. She said, well, boy, you know, you're a young boy, want you to stay in school and learn as much as you can. I said, I want to be the champion of the world, and I ain't gonna get it down here.
Instead, the ambitious young Frazier moved north, eventually settling in Philadelphia via New York. In between jobs at a slaughterhouse and a life of petty crime, he let off steam at the Police Athletic League where he learned to box. And it was here that he teamed up with trainer Yank Durham. The fiery Frazier made an immediate impression.
He's going into the job to do the best he possibly can do. But at times he will get worked up that, you know, it's, he and I, we don't argue, but he cuts me up pretty short, and I know that he's, you know, getting a little worked up about the fight, and he's figured out the fight on his own from there. He wanted to move. He quit nights. He's seen other guys doing it, and he thought he was the type of fighter that could move around the ring. And I said, look, this is something we have to stop. This nonsense running around the ring and trying to box. It's not a boxer. You're too short for a boxer. You're a fighter. You got the power. And I figured by teaching him the born-in style, slipping and all the time, and keeping after a guy, that he would be successful in this, you know, fighting his style there. If you look at the boy's structure, he's a strong boy, big thighs, and he's a very good puncher. And you got to keep the guy applying pressure on these fighters.
When I came out of Mama, I was a big boy. So therefore, so I do know how to throw them hands, you know what I mean?
Most important, when you're in there fighting, you're going down this way, see my head is exposed?
Right.
You get into here, we can bring them up from there. You go down, when he's coming out, bring them hands up.
I had plenty of insight on Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier was a hell of a fighter. Joe Frazier belonged in any era. A well-taught guy. Yank Durham was a great manager he had. The trainer was a great trainer. I'm from Philly originally, so I knew the whole clientele around Joe Frazier. I knew the guys. They were friends of mine.
Under Durham's watchful eye, Frazier quickly progressed as an amateur, winning the Golden Gloves heavyweight division in 1962, 63 and 64, before taking his place on the US team for the 1964 Olympics.
I started in 1960, 61, late 61, early 62, and then went on to Tokyo to win a gold medal. I was the only guy to save America on the boxing team. Let's say I'm the only guy that won a gold medal. So therefore I saved America. And during the time, I messed around and had busted up knuckles and thumbs and stuff, and I still fought, let's say, with a busted up hand because I want that gold medal.
Despite breaking his already formidable left hand in the semi-final, Frazier beat West German Hans Huber to take the gold medal.
He won the gold medal when others were supposed to go and fight, and they didn't. Smoking Joe went in there, and he won the gold medal. Smoking Joe was an all-American boy.
Shortly after the Olympics, the All-American Smoking Joe turned professional, backed by a local consortium, Cloverley. He continued where he left off, defeating all comers. Short for a heavyweight, but full of courage, Frazier fought with a frightening intensity rarely seen before in the ring. By 1967, he was the leading contender for Muhammad Ali's crown. But Ali had his own problems. This title defense against Zora Foley would be his last for 3.5 years, when he was suspended for refusing to join the US Army. From that point on, Frazier and Ali's careers would be intertwined forever.
At that time, Frazier had turned pro. He starts to build his momentum. By 1967, in July, the first man ever to stop George Chuvalo, this impenetrable force that had gone the limit with Ali 15 rounds. Nobody could put him off his feet. Frazier stops him in the 4th round.
With Ali now out of the picture, a tournament was devised between the leading 10 contenders to crown a new heavyweight champion. Joe Frazier led the way.
Now he's starting to build a momentum, and people are seriously starting to say, hey, if Ali was still around, you think he'd beat Frazier? And for the first time, you start to say, well, Frazier's got a chance. He starts to get stronger. They split the title. They have a tournament to determine who's heavyweight champion with the WBA. Frazier wins the New York Championship by beating Buster Mathis, who had beaten him in the amateurs in the Olympic trials. He comes back and knocks out Manuel Ramos. Now there's rumblings of Ali coming back again.
Joe Frazier and his left hook were leaving a mark on the division. But Ali refused to accept the legitimacy of anybody willing to declare themselves the heir to his throne.
I am the two-time United States Golden Glove champion, two-time United States National AAU champion, World Olympic gold medal winner. When Mr. Joe Frazier first came into the light, I was defending my title against Zoe Foley for the 10th time. I defended my title, defeated the best.
When Mathis and I won the title, then he was like running around talking about I got this title, and he wants to beat me up. I mean, I was ugly, you know what I mean? And say I couldn't talk and I couldn't walk. I was too small to be a champion. But therefore, I had no problem kicking his butt.
If Ali was to come back, though, he wanted Joe Frazier.
See Joe Frazier, holler. Trying to find Joe Frazier.
There's talk he's going to fight on an Indian reservation. Talk he's going to fight up in the Goodyear blimp. Talk here they're going to put him in some island to fight. All these crazy possibilities of him coming back and fighting.
One more time, who's the champ of the world?
Despite the protestations, Frazier only had his sights set on becoming the official heavyweight champion. A fight against Jimmy Ellis in February 1970 gave him that chance.
Ellis was easier than Mathis. Jimmy wasn't no heavyweight. You understand? Jimmy grew from middleweight to light heavy, then heavyweight. So it makes a difference.
But by August 1970, Ali was back. And after 3.5 years in exile, that meeting with Frazier was closer than ever.
Then they announced that Ali's making a comeback in Atlanta, and he stops Jerry Quarry in October. Frazier comes back and destroys Bob Foster, the light heavyweight champion, in November. And now the stage is set. You know, every contender's been knocked down. It's like these two guys in the old West, the one in white and the one in black, and they face off in the gunslinging showdown, and there's nobody else standing.
I'll get you. You done nothing, man. I will get you.
And like everybody's anticipating this fantastic fight is about to happen.
The date was set for March the 8th, 1971, at New York's Madison Square Garden. It was billed as the fight of the century.
It was a natural rivalry because he became the champ while my guy was away.
They didn't like each other. Because Ali didn't like Joe, and Joe didn't like Ali because of name calling he was doing with Joe. Calling him Uncle Tom and everything, and boy and all that, you know. Joe didn't like that.
How's a slow, flat-footed, ugly, slow, awkward Joe Frazier gonna whip Muhammad Ali? If he dreamed it, he better wake up and apologize.
Well, your silly got his little gimmicks and little schemes and little plan and little phony ways about him, you know what I mean? But as far as I'm concerned, he's all right with me.
Took him to New York one time, gave him some love. And he got out the car, Joe Frazier, Joe Frazier got my title. Joe Frazier got my title. I want to whoop Joe Frazier. I said, no, you ain't gonna whoop you want to fight me, okay?
Their contrasting styles made it a classic matchup. The slick, smart, streetwise Ali against Frazier, the vicious, square-shouldered bulldozer.
There's that old story that styles make fights. Joe's style was exactly the antidote to Ali's, and vice versa.
But all Joe Frazier's relying on is a couple of good hooks. And he's fighting a fighter who's not even scratched.
I don't see really any different from Clay's style and the past 26 guys I've been fighting.
What you slip his jab to the left, you can hit him with a left hook. You slip it to the right, you can hit him with a right hand. Okay.
I'll be taking my time and keeping my distance on my toes, staying in arm range. I'm taller than he, and pop, pop, sticking him with that fast jab.
I'm gonna slip and slide, you know, and pop him with body shots, you know, and I get over to the right hand counter.
I don't know about who's win, but I hope Frazier does.
Mohammed is going to win the fight.
Muhammad Ali.
I favor Frazier.
I think Clay will win.
The best man wins.
Both fighters were unbeaten, and both had claims to be the true champion.
Tonight, they will all admit, they will all say how wrong they were. Listen to me now. This will be no contest.
Never in my lifetime or since have I ever seen a boxing match capture that kind of worldwide attention. They had 21,000 people in the Garden that night. They could have had 221,000 people there.
Frazier's hook's falling short. That's a good left hook, and he gets it home to the head of Clay, and Clay's hurt, and he dances away from the ropes because he had down from Clay. What a fight. This is Frazier this time, snarls back at Clay as Clay catches him to the head. I don't know what he said, but obviously he was showing contempt. Oh, there it is! The left hook! Frazier's at last caught up with him. Tremendous left hook. So Clay down, the first knockdown of the fight.
Winner by unanimous decision, and still heavyweight champion of the world, Joe Frazier.
No, he ain't no fighter. He's a boxer. He hit and run, you know what I mean? But I tracked him down. I cut him down. He could run, but he couldn't hide.
Yet after beating Ali, Frazier never got the recognition he felt he deserved. His motivation had begun to desert him. It was almost a year until he fought again, successfully defending his title on 2 occasions. His next fight, however, was against the 1968 Olympic champion. Frazier faced George Foreman in Jamaica in January 1973. Foreman arrived with a fearsome reputation, and what followed was devastating. Knocked down 6 times in just 2 rounds, Smokin' Joe lost both his title and his reputation.
I got stopped, I got hit with a good shot, and I got cut, so they stopped the fight, you know what I mean? But back to the drawing board.
The drawing board meant another fight with his nemesis, Muhammad Ali. They met again in 1974, a disappointing fight that Ali won on points. But Ali then beat George Foreman to regain his heavyweight title, setting the stage for a third and deciding fight with Joe Frazier.
Would you believe I'd beat Frazier and beat Norton and their god Foreman? Now I would be the champion again and the world bowing and all those chumps are knocking on my door. Here I am.
The venue for their decider was Manila in the Philippines, but the animosity had deepened. This time Ali's insults took on an uglier connotation. This time there was real contempt.
Joe felt, and not unjustifiably, that Ali demeaned him, and in many ways he did.
Ali frequently mocked his opponents.
Joe Frazier is so ugly, his face should be donated to the Bureau of Wildlife.
The one time he went over the line, and he did it several times, was with Joe Frazier. The first fight, he branded Joe an Uncle Tom. The second fight, he called him ignorant. The third fight, he labeled Joe a gorilla with all of the ugly racial stereotyping that involves.
Man's too slow. Man's too ugly. Man can't think. He's a geechee. He's some snuffs. There he is, Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier.
I can't see anywhere I look like any gorilla. I just overlook all of it anyway, because when a guy speak upon another man like that, he's not quite sure himself.
More than anything, Frazier wanted revenge. Unwilling and unable to compete with Ali's razor-sharp tongue, his sole aim was to let his fists talk for him.
It's not going to be a first-round knockout. If it gets to that point, I want to go over and help him up. You know what I'm saying? I want to take him to the distance. I want to take him to the bridge. 15 rounds. I want to beat on him. I figure like when you knock a man out, you take him out of his misery. Suffer him a little bit, beating on him, that hurts him more than anything in the world.
He might be Joe Frazier in the ring, but Joe was too pure a fighter to be psychologically dominated.
I usually don't get involved with, let's say, that kind of warfare. I feel like he's another man, and only one way to think. That's to win. Don't pay attention to what he's saying. I think the main thing about it that he would like for his opponent to get all riled up and get carried away. That way you kind of forget what your plans are.
The fight would go down as perhaps the most brutal heavyweight encounter of all time.
The oddity of that fight was that it took place indoors. It was at Arrownet Arena. Tin roof, hot, Klieg lights. I don't know how both fighters survived the fight.
That was an incredible fight. Neither guy was as good as he had once been, but their downward curves intersected at just the right point. It was a historic battle, fought in really death-like heat and humidity.
With a mixture of shock and awe, the world watched two aging gladiators exchange devastating blows for 14 rounds.
Joey Eisenberg had a wonderful line about that fight. He said they weren't fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world. They were fighting for the heavyweight championship of each other.
Frazier had been going blind in his left eye since 1962. And in the final rounds, Ali closed his right eye, plunging him into darkness. Frazier's trainer, Eddie Futch, had seen enough, stopping the fight at the end of the 14th round, just when many felt Ali had been seconds away from retiring on his stool.
This eye was closed, so therefore I could have got hurt. He said, no, let's stop it. No, 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 no. I said, come on, Ed, no, no, no. But then we didn't know that Muhammad wasn't going to come out. That's not our job. Our job is concerned with our corner. And he knew that I couldn't see out of this eye. This one was closing, so he called the shot. My job was to fight. His job was the trainer, you know what I mean? And so if he had seen something that I didn't see, that was his place to call the shot.
Frazier always maintained he was prepared to risk death to beat Ali that morning in Manila.
He was terrific as a fighter. You know, there's no doubt about it. And with the Thrill in Manila, he personified that. Being able to demonstrate, you know, his ability to go in there and fight and give it his all.
It was a defeat Frazier never recovered from. He fought just twice more, finally retiring in 1981. But it was still the shadow of Ali, now in deteriorating health, who dominated his thoughts.
But I talked to Joe, and Joe said, look, he said, I can't talk. Look at him, he can't talk at all. See, he said, God don't like that. God don't like ugly. He talked about everybody. Now, look at him.
Frazier retained that bitterness towards Ali for the rest of his life. He retired into relative anonymity to help run his own gym in Philadelphia for several decades, until he faced a battle against liver cancer at the age of 67. He lost his final fight to the disease in November 2011. In poor health himself, Ali attended the funeral.
God bless your spirit, Joe. You know what I mean? And I know that the Lord is welcoming you, that another gladiator has came. Another one has walked into the doors and the portals of heaven, and your spirit and your legacy will live on. He was a great man. I love him, and I love his family, and I think all of them, then America can join hands together and applaud Smoking Joe Frazier, a true American hero.
Uncomplicated but dignified, a brutal and intense fighter, Frazier won 32 of his 37 fights, 27 of them by knockout. The only men to ever beat him were Ali and George Foreman. Smoking Joe Frazier so often had to share the limelight, but he was a true great champion in his own right.
Now, the time is near, the time is here to check my hopes and prepare to take the dare. It's time to climb right through them ropes and face a man who has a plan and states that plan not in a shy way. Well, that's his right. When come to fight, I'll fight him out.